In today's session, I'm so excited to be talking about AI and documentation techniques. And we have some amazing guests with us. We have Rajaswa, who is a research associate here at Postman, as well as Sterling, who is also a senior research associate and developer advocate now here at Postman. So with that, I'd love to have Sterling and Rajaswa sort of introduce themselves. Who wants to go first?
I'll
Yeah.
let you go, Rajaswa.
Oh, yeah, sure. So, thank you, Pooja. Hi, everyone. So, I'm Rajaswa. I'm a research associate at Postman, and I primarily focus on AI research and I work on Postbot. I'm based out of Bangalore, and it's good to see you all.
Yeah, awesome.
My
Sterling?
name is Sterling. I am formerly a senior research associate working on the Postbot team and have recently moved over into developer DevRel here at Postman. So I'm really excited for this new role. And I've been with Postman for 2.5 years. Love everything around AI. Worked very closely with the Postbot team with as they've done, and so you've seen I've been somewhat the face of Postbot for a while, trying to get the word out there and getting more people using it. So I'm really excited to be here.
Course. Thanks so much, Sterling and Rajaswa. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Pooja, Pooja Mistry. I work as a developer advocate here at Postman. And for those of you who've been following the Intergalactic series, we've been doing these webinars. I sort of run these series, try to get some interesting people from Postman, involved and sharing their insights with these communities. So since we're talking about AI, both Rajaswa and Sterling are like the perfect people to sort of drive this conversation. So I'm so excited to have them on board. But before we get started, let's dive a little bit into what our agenda is for today. So we're going to talk about testing specifically and where AI plays a role in that. We're going to introduce one of our really interesting tools, Postbot, as we've been chatting. We're going to show a live demo, and then by the end, we'll share some resources, some Q&A, and we'd love to get some insight from you in our survey as well, and what you've used AI for. So before we go into that, I like to start these sessions by pulling out a poll. And so for those of you specifically that are on this call, our thoughts are that maybe you are using AI for certain things. So our first poll that I wanted to launch is, what do you currently use AI for? And for those of you who are familiar with Postbot per se, we'd love to kind of get some insight from you on that as well. So with that, let me go ahead and launch this poll. So let's take a look. So the first poll I'm going to launch is the AI poll. So let's go ahead and launch that. So this is a poll that you can sort of ask certain questions. It looks like we have some folks, you can do multiple responses. So do you use it for programming, development, testing, administrative tasks, or using it for everything? If you're using it for we'd love to like know in the chat, like what else do you use? Like type in the chat, what other resources, how do you use AI? This is kind of a great way for us to kind of understand what AI is being used for specifically as well. So feel free to type in the chat as you're sort of taking this poll, if you're using AI for some different reason as well. And it looks like we have over 74 or 65 participants that have participated. On my end, I'm seeing most people are using it for testing, for development, for documentation. And so somebody mentioned they're using it for red teaming, which I'm not familiar with. Have you guys heard of that? I'm curious what that is. Or security. Okay, so Miguel's on the call as well. And by the way, it looks like some folks are typing in for hosts and panelists. If you're typing in the chat, I just recommend everyone make sure you change that setting to everyone, and that way everyone can see your answers. So that way you're posting out to everyone. But it looks like most people have taken this poll. So I'm going to end this poll, and I'm going to share this result so that way you all can see what most people have seen. Does this look okay to you guys? Like Sterling, Rajaswam, most people are kind of using testing, documentation. Those are big things. So somebody on the chat has said that they're using it to help keep commit messages short and condensed, which I see that as very useful. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing this poll, and I'm going to launch just a poll about Postbot. So I'd love to see how many people have even worked with Postbot, have used it before. It looks like most folks from my end I'm seeing are beginners to Postbot. So this is going to be a really interesting session on that end too, because, this will be a great way for us to kind of, show you some cool things and hopefully help you see the power of it. So it looks like 82% of folks are beginners, 18% I'm seeing are intermediate. So let me go ahead and end that poll and share those results as well. So we'll go ahead and do that as well. So cool. So all right, stop sharing. And with that, thank you all for taking those polls, giving us a little bit more insight on your familiarity. Let's go ahead and dive right in and talk a little bit about some things that we have discovered at Postman through some of the reports that we have done. So in last year, we always do this report called the 2023 State of the API report. And so this report is a report that we have talked to more than 40,000 developers worldwide. So it's the largest comprehensive survey about APIs. And so with this report, we've highlighted a couple of things. So one of the biggest highlights that we've highlighted is that 25% of developers from this report, have used AI to forecast their productivity. So if you're interested in learning more about this report, you can, I'll post a link in the chat, and our moderator, Debo, who's online, will be helping out posting some links. But this is our 2023 State of the API report. And from our key findings, you can see that APIs are moneymakers for most APIs. Pricing increase matters, but most API professionals are using AI to help code their APIs. So just to kind of go into a little bit of what that looks like, we're seeing that AI is being used as an assistant, specifically now to, find mistakes in code, generate code. And so with this, we've asked our survey takers whether or not they're using some generative AI tool. And we found that over 60% have responded that they are using these tools. And these are some of the stats that we found, that most folks are using it to generate code, and how this AI will be able to use and teach them how to code. So I don't find some of these things surprising. Rajaswa, Sterling, do you have any thoughts on some of these stats when we take a look at just some of our survey takers?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, this aligns with what we're seeing. I also have a very good suspicion that this is going to change within the next 2 or 3 years. And as the AI industry continues to evolve, as AI itself continues to evolve, I think there's going to be, what we see here is going to change as well. And I'm looking forward to seeing what 2024's State of the API comes out with. But during 2023, majority of people, they were using it to find their mistakes, generating code. It aligns with what Postbot is really doing. So that, I love that.
Yeah. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, no, I think that sounds right. So, generative AI has found a very good use case in programming assistance, and I think that is what's being reflected over here. But as Sterling said, the technology will keep evolving over time, and maybe we'll see something different. But I'm assuming we'll still keep seeing a lot of AI usage in programming, development, and
Definitely.
everything around that.
Yeah. So y'all have to stay tuned for the 2024 report. I already feel like it's going to look so different this year. It's so crazy how fast technology moves. But one thing that we've also figured out in our 23 report is the types of tests that people are running. So most of the tests that people are running are functional tests, integration tests, performance tests. And so with that, there's this is a great place that Postbot has kind of found its niche, specifically with these type of testing. So we've really asked our developers to kind of learn a little bit more about the types of tests they're writing and how an AI tool can kind of help them do that level of testing. So just to kind of dive a little bit into API testing methods. So, of course, manual testing, the idea is that manual testing is very beneficial for specific use cases. However, that evolves into unit testing, integration testing, performance testing. And so, this is a productivity thing when it comes to writing tests. So when it comes to manual testing, you're thinking a little bit more about that exploratory, debugging, development type of testing. And whereas like unit testing requires like contract testing, happy path, negative path testing. I'd like to just kind of think about testing as a concept as well, especially with AI playing a role into this. And so we have some questions on the chat about, what makes API Postman make an API penetration testing, and it's an awesome tool. I wanted to just let everyone know, if you have specific questions, feel free to add those questions in the Q&A button at the bottom. We have some moderators as well that are happy to answer those questions as we keep going, but just that way we can also monitor your questions as well a little bit more clearly. So feel free to post some of your questions there. But let's talk a little bit about testing in general, and where you guys, both Sterling, Rajaswa, where you guys see like AI kind of playing a role, like how manual testing has shifted now with some of these technologies. Any thoughts on that front?
Someone on this webinar is here. I was actually going to use, when we had discussed this previously, there's a person on this webinar right now, Fabian Feld, who I've worked with him. He's in Argentina. So hi, Fabian, good to see you. I saw you message on that. I use him as an example a lot, which is from going from manual testing. AI is really here. It raises the bar, but it lowers the bar of entry, but it raises the ceiling.
Yeah.
So manual testing is now shifting more into the ability, because AI and generative AI can help testers. It can write those unit tests for them. They can help write the integration tests. And so now it's allowing those who are used to be just manual testers, now it's empowering them to do so much more, which in the long run is going to just increase their productivity. It's going to make them more valuable to the company. So I see that the way I see it is, in this case, it looks like there's really kind of a shift more to the right on it, but it's lowering the bar of entry for writing tests, for writing unit tests, integration tests, and just increasing the ceiling for everybody. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, cool. No, I see it the same way. And with that, let's talk a little bit about where AI plays a role in all of this. So Rajaswa, I wanted you to kind of lead this conversation, specifically when it comes to AI at Postman, but just with Postbot in general. So let's feel free to chime in. So go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So again, from what we saw in the state of the API report, people are already interested in using AI as an assistant for different tasks around their API workflows. It might be testing, it might be documentation. And given the current state of the generative AI technology, AI is actually doing quite well as an assistant for all these different tasks around API workflows and management, right? So Postbot is Postman's AI assistant within your Postman workspaces. So we at the Postbot team visualize Postbot as an AI-powered Postman expert sitting right next to you that you can talk with, that you can converse with. Postbot can help you understand a few things around Postman. If you are confused about some features, you want to learn something about APIs Postman, Postbot can help you with that. But apart from that, Postbot's goal is also to increase developer productivity. So right now, Postbot can write API tests for you. It can write API documentation. And we often run into issues while running our requests or running our test scripts and so on. So Postbot can also help you debug your API request and test scripts.
Definitely. And so some of the, you talked about this a little bit more, but we'll see some of this in action. But just to recap on our end, what are some of the main features currently?
Yes. So we can think of this as a usual workflow that a developer has to go through while working with APIs. So right from sending your API request, if you have trouble with that, Postbot can help you debug your API requests. Once you have the request ready, if you want to add tests for it, Postbot can help you with that. You can add test scripts for your request using Postbot. Uh, Next, you're ready to share it with your consumers, your internal collaborators, and so on. So Postbot can use AI to generate documentation for you. It can visualize your API responses so that they are easy to understand and go through. And then obviously, if you need any help in Postman around anything, then Postbot has the entire context of the Postman application, its features. It can guide you and assist you through all the workflows in Postman.
Cool. And so Postbot has gone through a journey. We launched it May 23. So it's only 1 year old at this point.
Yes.
It just finished its first birthday.
Yes.
And a lot has changed in that 1 year. So let's talk a little bit about the evolution so far.
Yeah, so we are very proud of the Postbot journey. It has been phenomenal. The Postbot team has been exceptionally good at this. So the generative AI technology has been evolving very rapidly, and we have been on top of it. We start our experimentations very early. We start our research very early, getting POCs, and then obviously getting the features out for our users. So as Pooja mentioned, we started in May of 2023. It was a very vanilla version of Postbot, not accessible to everyone, running in an early access program. In July, it was available for everyone to use in an open beta program. You had natural language interactions enabled for Postbot. And then over time, we kept on adding more and more features to Postbot. So in September, we had AI-powered response visualization. We had AI-powered question answering over the Postman documentation. And then, of course, next we added one of the most popular AI features that's out there, which is autocomplete. So you could autocomplete your test scripts with Postbot. And then another place where developers usually might need some AI assistance, which was documentation. So that was out there. And right now, agentic AI or AI agents is the next big thing that's happening in the realm of generative AI. And we are one of the first few teams to roll out a conversational agent out for all our users, whether it's enterprise or non-enterprise. So all Postman users have access to Postbot, which is now powered as a conversational agent. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited to see how Postbot has evolved, but so far we've already done so much work and some really powerful features. So with that, I wanted to just dive right in, and this is going to be Sterling's big session to show just like all of the features that Postbot really has, and hopefully excite you all about what we've built.
Yeah. Well, thanks. And Rajaswa, I'm probably going to lean on you a little bit for some technical questions as I go. But the purpose of this demo and Debo and those, if you're in the webinar chat, please feel free to ask questions. I'm going to do a much larger deep dive than, and not just do superficial in this. So I'm going to go over the 5 main capabilities of Postbot, and we'll go one by one. So the first one, so the 5 capabilities of Postbot are testing, so API test generation, documentation, data visualization, request debugging, so that's helping you with your request. And then the last one is Postbot is tied to our learning center, and so it can answer questions if it doesn't have the current capability. So it's your AI expert. Sorry, it's your Postman expert inside of Postbot. So let's dig in. So right here, I have my Intergalactic demo. I have my Rocket Launches API that I put together. If you watched our keynote at PostCon, it's the exact same that we built. So I'm gonna go ahead, and Postbot needs to have a response for it to generate. So I'm going to go into testing. It needs to have a response to write tests for you. So to do this, I'll hit send. Well, looks like there's a problem. Let's go ahead and see. Postbot, the cool thing is what's wrong. And it's going to take a look at what's happening on my workspace. Looks like I've got, yep, I need to switch the environment. And I switched the environment, and now it's asking, let's send that request again. Sure enough, we got it. So there's request debugging. Anytime you see the what's wrong, and you see that you see the Postbot logo in the bottom right, you can use that, and Postbot is really there to help you. It'll look at your environment variables, will look at everything, and try to help you through all of that. Okay, so let's write some tests. Postbot, first and foremost, I'm gonna take a step back a little bit and explain the context around Postbot. And Rajaswa kind of touched on this, but right now, Postbot's context stays on the tab or the window that it's in. Meaning, if I'm in upcoming launches and I'm in this tab, Postbot keeps the context of this tab here. If I were to switch tabs, you notice Postbot now goes away. And if I open up Postbot in the bottom right, by the way, Postbot is in the bottom right. Now I open up a new window of Postbot. It's different, right? That's because it is keeping the context within the window it's working in. And that was very deliberate. That helps us ensure that anytime you ask a follow-up question, that we're going back to the context that's there. So let's go back to the upcoming launches. And the next thing you'll notice is down here we have some call to actions, some CTAs. And these are really here to just help you get started and let you know what Postbot is capable of doing. So in this case, I'm just gonna use the call to action, add test to this request. And behind the scenes, so there's a few questions that people have asked. I noticed asking specifically around the AI service. So we have fine-tuned Postbot on in this case, the way Postman testing is written. So it has been fine-tuned to our specification. So it's not just an OpenAI API that we're using. There's a lot more involved. And Rajaswa, if there's further questions, Rajaswa can dig into that a little bit later. But right now, what you see here is Postbot has generated a handful of tests. And I'm going to go to my test results here. Looks like some of them have failed. That's okay. Again, Postbot is your assistant. It's not going to always do 100%. Now, cool thing is if I go in and I look at this, well, we know the response time is, this is ideal. It's 200. I'm just going to, for the sake of this, I'm going to up it to 800. And we have a refresh results, and now it's within the acceptable time frame. Now, the other cool thing about this is I know this was going to break because I know my API well, and I know what the response is like. So there's a problem here with the regex. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to ask Postbot to update the test because the regex is wrong. It's giving me a wrong date format. So please update the date test to the following format. And I'm just going to paste the format there. I'm going to let Postbot now do its thing. What you'll notice here, I was on line 28. Here in a moment, you're going to see the regex change. And this is the power of Postbot. So the best part about this is in my past life as a software engineer, and I still write software a lot. I still dev on my own, but I'm horrible at regex. I don't know a single developer, aside from a mentor of mine from years and years and years ago, who taught regex. I don't know anyone who's good at regex, who remembers all the things. So Postbot knows how to do this, and it can help you. So now we have got all 4 tests. Now, if I go back and look at the tests, we're expecting status code of 200. Cool. I've got response has the required fields. So this is kind of like an API contract test. It has the fields. We've got the right format now, and the response is within an acceptable time frame. So that is the call to actions. And I like what Marcos just said. If regex comes out right the first time, you probably did it wrong, and you're most likely right. Rajas was over there, giggling. It's so true. So this is what Postbot can help you with as just very bare bones. Click on it. It's going to generate some very basic tests for you, kind of like your skeleton test. However, Now I want to dig in because we want to talk more about digging in, or we're going to dig more into testing and API documentation. So I don't know if you were aware of this. I'm gonna go back to line 1, and Postbot has the ability to autocomplete. So if you've used Copilot, so VS Code and Microsoft Copilot before, you'll recognize this pattern. We followed in a similar fashion. Postbot can autocomplete. So with this, I'm going to show you how, outside of this, if you know your API and you know what you're expecting, whether you're an integration tester, whether you are a manual tester, whether you are a producer or a consumer of this API, you want your tests may be a little bit more specific, and you know the business logic behind it. In this case, I'm going to use Postbot's autocomplete to generate some additional tests for me. So the way this works is I do pm.test and I do my brackets. And then from here, I put my quotes, and now this is where the power of Postbot comes in. I'm going to use natural language to tell Postbot what type of test I want. So I want to write an API contract test. API contract test. Now from here, now that I'm going to close this and I'm going to hit the comma. Now at that point, Postbot is now thinking, and as you notice, it now wrote an entire test for me using the natural language. Now it looks like it was trying to add a couple other things, so we're going to get rid of those. Again, Postbot and AI is not always perfect. It's going to get you 90% of the way there. And now it's not going to replace you right now. It's not going to replace a good quality developer, but it's going to enhance your capabilities and help you be more productive. So I wrote an API contract test that now I can go back and go, no, that looks right. So for those, I know we've seen some people in here talking about red hat testing, whether you're red or blue team, doing pen testing and whatnot. The other aspect of this is Postbot. Let's play. We're going to play around. I don't have a post request here or a post here, but if you're going to do some pen testing, let's just check for script injection.
Mm-hmm.
So pm.test and check for no script injection. Okay. Now this is a GET request. You're not going to get script injection here, but we're going to play with this, and really quickly I can look over it and say, yeah, the response response.text does not include script. Now again, if this was a post, you would look at what the input was, and Postbot is going to write that for you, and we've done that. Yeah. Actually, let me see if I have a post here.
So Sterling, actually, while you're going through that, we have some really interesting questions from some of our audience members. I guess M. Cohen, there's a couple of interesting questions that I figured you could answer live. So one of the questions is, what is Postbot's context window capacity? Like, does it have a token limit? Do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, so Rajaswa can actually answer that one. I'll let you do that.
Yeah, sure. So, for the broader audience, for your context, every AI assistant has a limit in terms of the length of conversations it can run with you. It's a text or a string limits, like number of words it can process. So we power Postbot with different kinds of models. So can't really put a specific number for you. It can be 16K, it can be 32K. Can't really reveal those things over here. But we do follow certain floating windows, in the sense that if the conversation is running for long enough and Postbot is like trying to exceed its context, then we handle it smartly by moving a window of the context accordingly. So yeah. And on top of that, we also add extra measures to make sure that that window doesn't get exhausted very, very quickly.
Cool.
I guess another question, or another way to answer that, is we have not had anybody so far hit our context window. I mean, these are things that we're tracking on the Postbot team. We're looking at all the metrics to make sure no one has exceeded the context windows so far. So and that means like you're able to do your job, what your normal day to day is like within Postbot.
Yeah. And so some other questions we have are like, do Postbot's historical responses saved within the collection? And is there ways that you can add comments to the code? Can Postbot do that?
So those two
So
questions. Oh, go ahead, Rajaswa.
I'll take the first one, Sterling. So, as of today, Postbot's historical responses are not saved within the collection. As Sterling mentioned, uh, it has a different context for every tab, every session you're having on Postman. So, that is all the memory it has, which is restricted to that particular tab and that particular session and the context around that. So, it's not saved across time or across tabs. Yeah.
And I'll take that second question, which is, can it comment your code? Currently, no. It cannot comment your code, but we are constantly, so in this case, specifically around autocomplete, we are still actively working on autocomplete. This is not a done feature. So
Yes.
we have had requests for adding comments to the code. So in this case, we'd love to hear from around your use cases, where you want to use it, so that we can make Postbot better. And then I think I just saw Shelly ask a great question: is Postbot just for flows? No, it's not. Postbot is all over, wherever it can be used.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
So, any other questions that you caught, Pooja?
No, I think we should be good on that front.
Okay.
At least the Postbot ones. Yep.
All right. So this is testing at a standard, at a small scale, on your single request. By the way, outside of autocomplete, outside of the call to actions, you can also ask Postbot and prompt Postbot to do certain things as well. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to get rid of this API contract test, and I'm going to ask Postbot to add a contract test. So please add an API contract test. So these are the multiple ways of being able to get Postbot to do or take action on your behalf. So it looks like there it is. So now it's asked API contract tests, and it looks like, yep, so we're good to go. So now, you can do with autocomplete, you can prompt Postbot inside of the Postbot window here. There's multiple ways of getting Postbot to write your test for you. Okay, so that's at the singular test. But what if you have a large collection of tests and you want to go through and add tests for everything? Let's say you've got a brand new collection that you've got a new API you're writing, you're building, and you want to write tests for it. So in this case, if you click on the three dots here, you can add. Where is?
Oh, it's right above.
Oh,
yeah.
You can add generate tests right here. It moved on me. So you can add generate tests, and what'll happen is you're going to see Postbot is going to open up a new tab, and it's going to pull everything out of my collection. So I have 5 requests here. It's going to pull the existing tests. So Postbot is not going to replace the tests that are there, because assuming I'm in my workflow, I just added a whole boatload of tests that I know that I needed to have here. So it's not going to sit and replace these. But it's also going to show me what tests are not, what requests don't have tests. So I can click on generate tests, and now what's happening is Postbot is going through each one of the requests. It's sending the request, getting the response, taking the response, taking that through our AI service, our Postbot service, and now generating tests across the board for you. And the cool part about this, I'm going to move the videos here, is that you can open them up and just double check. So looks like we've got a contract test here, valid format. We know that this is the get missions. It looks like there's an invalid format. Again, that regex is wrong. But we've got a lot of these that have passed. So the cool part about this is I can check all of this, but the other part is I can redo them or rewrite them. So I'm going to say I expect this to be a 400. Now we know that's not really what's what's going to happen, but let's say the response should be a 400. I can refresh the results, and it comes back and it shows that this one failed. So we're rerunning the tests and checking them all over again. So I'll fix that. I'm going to go back to here, check that, rerun their tests. Everything looks good. And I'm going to hit save. And now I've saved all of these. So now if I go back to let's go to my get missions request, and I can see here's all the tests that were done. And when I hit send, the tests come back, and I've been able to check them, and everything's working. So this allows you to increase your velocity and increase your and save you time when you're writing tests for your APIs. Now I've got full tests, or a full set of skeleton tests. Now I can go back and go through each one of them and write the business tests using Postbot. Add some API fuzzing tests, add a test around the business logic around that, and everything. So cool. Well, that's testing.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, so there's a couple more questions that we're getting from the chat. So there's one question about Postbot's auto-linting code. Does Postbot auto-lint as the code is written? Any thoughts on that?
Yes, it auto-lints when it's writing new code, right? So the code that's coming in, it's auto-linted, so it should work 100% of the time. In that case, I don't want to say it's not going to mess up, but in my extensive testing, I've not heard of any linting issues.
Cool. And then we have one more question, I guess, from Fabian, who was talking. He wanted you to go back to that security script that you were about to make. I don't know if there's any specific question about that, but it's like, can you go back to that security script you were about to make and make it? So just to kind of get some more insight on some of that security testing that you were trying to do.
Yeah. So in this case, I forgot that I've updated my API keys, and so for the sake of this is going to fail because I have the incorrect API key, and that's because I swapped over some API keys and I was using Postman Vault for this. But Fabian, to your point, the question you're asking here is, can it write script injection? Can it write pen testing? And yes, it can. Postbot most definitely can. So let's do this. pm.test, test for script injection. And what we should see is, now we should see expect the response.json. In this case, this is the error message, and it's taking that to not include script. So this is a post. You can also so you should be able to do any type of your script injection or any type of other, any security questions you may have. I'm not a security tester, so for those, if you have any specific tests you want to try, send us you can send it in the chat, or we can actually do this later. Send it to me via Twitter or LinkedIn, and I'd love to see what you can do with that.
Cool. And then just another question on, I guess, like the generating collection tests. We had a question in the chat about, if you were to refresh that, does it run only the failed tests, or can you run the tests, like all of the tests again?
Well, yeah, so you can use the collection runner here. So this is similar. So I'm going to run the collection runner, and it's going to run everything, and it's going to check, and it's going to show that. So just as you would any other collection runner, it reruns everything. It's gone through all of them. In this case, yeah, it's got the failed test, but we haven't gone back and fix those tests.
Cool. And we have one more question, I believe, on just testing, about generating tests for a collection having different HTTP methods and not just GET methods. I think you showed a little bit that you can do POST methods. This is for any basically API method, right, currently? And I think we should clarify, currently it's only REST APIs, where we have capability for GraphQL, gRPC, but we don't have Postbot enabled right now in that space. So this is just a REST API specific feature currently. So
Correct.
just wanted to clarify that. Yeah.
Yeah. And for those, if you do use GraphQL or if you use gRPC or any of the other supported methods, WebSockets, GraphQL, gRPC, MQTT, or Socket.io, if you have anything else and you have a use case, please reach out to us, because we're looking for testers, beta testers, to help with those as we bring those integrations online, because we want to ensure that those work alongside what you're trying to do. So our number one, our in this case was HTTP REST calls, but we are working on integrations with the other protocols that we have available.
Awesome. Cool. So there's one question about upcoming features, but we're going to save that one towards the end because we want to wrap it up with that. But with that, I wanted you to dive a little bit into documentation, just to be mindful on time, in 5 minutes or so, ideally.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing about documentation, and Pooja, thanks for checking up on all this. So Postbot can write your documentation for you, and it's really easy. Documentation is documentation. We know what it should be. Every engineer and every person on this call, if we were to poll everyone, they'd say documentation is extremely important, but no one has time to do it. Well, the nice thing is with Postbot, we know Postman knows APIs, and using the knowledge that we possess at Postman, being able to fine tune our AI service to generate documentation for you is a breeze. So there's multiple entry points. If I go in, so I want to clarify, Postbot will not edit existing documentation, because we assume that there's a reason why that documentation is there. It can generate from scratch. So in this case, I'm here. I can have Postbot generate. There's a click, generate with Postbot here, or there's a call to action where it says add documentation down here. In this case, I'm just going to use the call to action. They're all the same. But what's going to happen is Postbot is now working on writing the documentation. It's going to look at the response, the request, the response body, and it's going to generate those tests, or to generate that documentation for you. And it's now given me everything. It's given me example responses. It's given me my JSON schema. And now it's got everything that I need. Now, the cool thing with this is I'm going to go to my launch locations. I'm going to try something else. Generate docs for a producer or developer building this API. Okay, so now I'm asking Postbot to do something very specific around the documentation. So one would hope that there's going to be a little bit more around specific for those who are building it. So exactly, no requests required for this endpoint. No specific headers are required. So now someone who's building this API is going to see exactly, now this is now geared towards someone who's building this API. So very cool. That's documentation. That's really it. Now, I will say, and similar, I'm going to anticipate questions, Pooja. Postbot will not generate full collection documentation for every request like it does for this. And that's, again, at this point for a very specific reason. One is we want people to go in and be very explicit about what they want the Postbot to generate the documentation for. So we don't have the full collection suite like how we did test collections here, or test collection suite, or test suite collections. Wow, that's what I'm trying to say. It's not doing test or documentation suite for the collection either.
Yeah.
So that's documentation. Quick and easy. And there's no reason why anyone on this call who is a producer, consumer, API, anyone who's building in Postman, there's no reason why you can't keep your documentation up to date.
Yeah, I think that makes life a lot easier. I think, I've gotten questions a little bit about exporting docs. Any thoughts on that? Is that something that we currently do?
We do not currently export the documentation. That there are specific use cases that we are tracking. So again, Pooja, and anyone who's on here, if you have questions or if you have a specific use case of what you want, we'll send out a link to our to provide feedback and all of this. You can reach out to me, you can reach out to the team directly, and we'll get that. We'll start. We're continuing to bring up or gather those use cases. But yeah, there is a use case for exporting documentation. We just don't have that capability just yet.
Cool. Sounds good. All right. So just to be a little mindful on time, let's just go ahead and recap the wonderful demo. Sterling, thank you so much. We have quite a lot of different questions, so feel free to, take some time and take a look at those if you wanted to type any of those out. But with that, I'm going to just go ahead and continue since we have, I want to say about 10 minutes left. So just to recap, we went over collection test suites. So this is being able to write your tests on the entire collection side. We went over writing individual tests. We talked about autocomplete with Sterling's demo of autocomplete, being able to fix tests and test requests, documentation. Sterling showed documentation. I think one more feature that we didn't show, which is visualization, but there's capability to go ahead and visualize. So you can visualize things by a table, by a chart, by maps, by graphs. So especially when you don't want to just take a look at your raw JSON body, you can use Postbot to generate a lot of this visualization. And so that's same thing by using, typing in Postman, Postbot to visualize. And actually Rajaswal will talk about a really cool use case at the end. And then there's the AI expert level support, which is you can ask it any question that is pertaining from our learning center. So for example, how do I create mock servers? It'll give you just an example from our learning center of how to do that. Any question that you might have about just Postman in general, Postbot should give you any of that Postman level support. So with that, I want to give Rajaswal the space and time to talk about an interesting use case and also give everyone a call to action. So maybe if you get inspired by this use case, maybe go ahead and try it on your own and tag Get Postman on Twitter and share some of the Postbot use cases that you've tried out. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Rajaswal again to talk about one of the most interesting use cases that came out of Postbot in the last year of it coming out. So yeah, let me go ahead and have him share his screen there.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Pooja. So this is a really cool kind of a demo. So we couldn't do it live, but I want you to go through this. So Postbot supports API response visualization, right? And one of my coworkers here at Postman, Anudeep, he wanted to use APIs and AI to get a custom recommendation for music and songs and so on, right? So he leveraged APIs and he leveraged AI, which is Postbot. So let's see what Anudeep did here. So as we can see, he wanted custom recommendations for music, and he stumbled upon the Spotify API, which has a get recommendations endpoint, and you can set certain parameters, tempo, acousticness, and so on, and get custom recommendations based on your setting. So he picked up that API request, he put it in Postman, and he got a response. But as you can expect, it was a very long JSON response, which was not a very good user experience for him to get recommendations. So what did he do? So he started using Postbot to visualize this response in a hope to get a better UX for the recommendations. So he first attempted for an automatic visualization. So he just instructed Postbot to visualize response over here, and Postbot did that. So Postbot converted that long JSON response into a properly structured JSON with columns for track name, artist, albums, and so on. And this was good enough to start with, but he wanted it to be much more user-friendly. So the next thing he did was he mentioned, can you visualize the response with album art, track name, and link, and do this in a grid-like interface that you would see on a website or an application. And sure, the Postbot updated the visualization, and now that long JSON response is actually a great like interface with all the album arts and tracks and artists, along with the links for you to interact with. Uh, okay, so this was doing quite good so far, and he just thought, let's take it a step further. So, since this was the Spotify API, he wanted it to feel like Spotify. So he went ahead and mentioned, can you make the link in Spotify green color? And Postbot, as it's powered by generative AI, was familiar with what Spotify green color is. And surely, as you can see, all the links in the response were turned to the Spotify green color theme that we have. Uh, and then to like just polish it down to the finest level, and he was actually not sure if this is going to work or not, but it did. So the last thing that he mentioned was, do you want like make the track name bold, and can you convert it to the material theme that we see on applications like Spotify? And surely Postbot was able to do that as well with its API response visualization capabilities. And this was the final result that we had. So from picking up a random API from the Spotify documentation, getting it in Postman, and then using Postbot to visualize the long JSON response that the API was giving in this neat grid-like manner, which is very similar to the Spotify UX. Doing that all with natural language using Postbot and its AI capabilities. That is what he was able to achieve in a few minutes. And yeah, surely now Anudeep has a way to listen to his perfect track right in Postman. Yeah. So
Sorry, I was on mute. That's actually a really cool use case, specifically. And this, just to make everyone clear, he was able to do this when Postbot was really new too, right? Like when it had just come
yes,
out. So yeah, that's kind of interesting that he was able to build that many like visualizations and like a really cool like application use case with Postbot that was like really V1 of Postbot almost. So I've shared that use case in the chat with everybody. And so if you all are interested in Postbot, please go ahead. Let's talk a little bit about how Postbot can be accessed right now for everyone. So right now, for those of you who are free users, there's a limit. So any thoughts on the access availability of Postbot from you all?
Yeah, so Postbot is available to everyone, and it's on every plan. So all the way from free up to enterprise. So if you're on a free, basic, or professional plan, you have 50 free Postbot activities per month per user.
Mm-hmm.
And that is there's a hard limit there. And once you hit those 50, you'll be prompted to purchase. But in this case, on the free, basic, and professional plans, you can just get Postbot as a standalone product, and it's $10 a month.
Right.
Sorry, $9 a month is what we have it at. So the nice thing is that you can get it $9 a month. And you can use Postbot unlimited. There is we joke there. I mean, there is a hard limit, but it's only to prevent abuse. And no one has come close to hitting our actual hard limit. But you have unlimited Postbot usage per month. At the enterprise level, there is a lot more involved in that. So you have to go through an admin, and that would be $19 a month per user. And there's significantly more, there's a private instance of Postbot that's being used and it ensures there's a little bit more uptime and things that enterprises have higher expectations of. But in terms of what its capabilities are, there's no difference in the capabilities of Postbot from free all the way up to enterprise. It's the same Postbot, same code across the board. So you'll be able to utilize Postbot as you want. So 50 free per month per user. It's available on all your workspaces except for partner workspaces and public workspaces. And obviously that's for another good reason. And then use it. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. Use a thumbs up, thumbs down, and you can get feedback directly to the Postbot team using our GitHub issues.
Yeah, I just posted the Learning Center link for Postbot, so you'll be able to learn a little bit more about the access. But even on the free account, you can definitely start playing around with it as well. So
Yeah.
for sure, you can definitely get started there. And with that, I think there's a few more resources we wanted to share. Like the Learning Center is a great resource. There's another resource called the Postman Academy. And so if you, I'll have, I can add all of those links in the chat here, but the Postman Academy is also a great learning resource just to get people started with Postman in general. So it's a place for y'all to self-study and learn about Postman. What are collections, workshops, what are workspaces, what are APIs? These are basically great self-study resources, learning a little bit more about testing as well. And then we also have more instructor-led workshops and our students programs for those of you who are students. And so, and the last few things I wanted to share is also our survey that we're having everyone take. So I'm going to post this link into the chat as well for our survey, but there's a couple of questions in here that really pertain to Postbot. And so we'd love to, get your insight on this webinar, what you liked about this webinar, but also about Postbot. And if you've used the feature, what have you used the most? Any feedback that you would give to the Postbot team? And then, of course, how if you attend another Postman Intergalactic webinar. Intergalactic is really a great place for us to not only share um share the voice of Postman, but it's also a great place for us to learn a little bit more about you and some questions you might have. And we have a library of other resources that we've done previously, like discovering the public network, harnessing collections, workspaces. So a lot of great resources. All of the recordings are all available on our Intergalactic site. So I'll just share that resource as well for all of you who just want to learn a little bit more about Postman and get some more insight there. So with that, thank you so much. I'm going to stop share. I think one more question I wanted to just address, I think maybe for Rajaswa, Sterling, what are some upcoming features that we can kind of give some people some insight on?
I'll take this
Go
one.
ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll take this one. So the roadmap for Postbot, we're looking at a lot of other integrations, none that we can actually share at this point. And at PostCon, we did announce that Postbot went GA or general availability for enterprise. And so with that, there is a higher expectation. And so the Postbot team right now is also adding some more maturation side. It's stabilizing Postbot so that it meets the SLAs for enterprises. And so in that case, that's a lot of the engineering effort is now being pushed into that. But in this case, we can't really share the other things yet because there's a lot on the roadmap. So sorry, Rohit, we can't. I saw that question. Like I can't really, we can't really share a whole lot
Yeah.
other than right now. It's a lot of stabilization.
Yeah, for sure. So everyone's just going to have to stay tuned and, we'll have more intergalactics as Postbot becomes, maybe 2 years old or 3 years old. Who knows? We'll continue to keep y'all posted. So stay in touch, stay in tune in the Postman ecosystem. We're constantly on Twitter and LinkedIn and everywhere. Sterling, myself, Rajaswa, Debo, we're all doing events around the world as well. So feel free to continue to follow us and stay up to date. I want to take this opportunity to thank both Sterling and Rajaswa. Thanks so much for joining this session. A lot of really great insight, I think, from the session. So we'll take that feedback back to the team and make sure we deliver more interesting sessions for you as we move forward. So with that, thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining today's session on advanced AI and documentation techniques. All right. Have a good one, everyone. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.